The 1960s, collectivization and life under deprivation. China in the 1960s. Deeply imprinted with the aftermath of the Great Leap Forward 1958 to 1962 and the subsequent comprehensive consolidation of the people's commune system in rural areas. City life, meanwhile, is dominated by the unit system. This is a set of work, organizational forms of housing, social services, and even social control. The country's development focus is clearly tilted towards heavy industry. This strategy has had a profound impact on the distribution pattern of urban and rural resources. 1. Economy and income. In rural areas under the people's commune system, farmers' cash income is extremely limited. Land is collectively owned, and farmers participate in collective labor. Its income is mainly reflected in the form of work points, allocated according to collective output. However, this distribution often fails to meet basic living needs. The state sets lower purchase prices and mandatory acquisition quotas, extracting surplus value from the agricultural sector to support priority industries. Although there is the possibility of engaging in a limited household sideline during the slack season, but overall, farmers' economic autonomy has been greatly compressed. Living standards are generally low. Urban areas, urban residents, mainly employees of state-owned or collective enterprises, receive relatively stable but low-level wages in the public sector. Although there are some differences in income, the overall difference is not large. It exhibits so-called egalitarian characteristics. For city dwellers, what's more important is the various non-monetary benefits and state-subsidized goods and services obtained through the unit. These form an important part of their livelihood security. In terms of urban-rural disparities, the significant urban-rural disparity during this period was largely a direct product of national policies. City dwellers have a clear priority in access to resources. The strict household registration system firmly binds the population to a specific area, urban or rural, restricting population mobility. The social and economic divide between urban and rural areas has been solidified. According to a study by economists Ravi Kanber and Xiaobo Han, the first peak of inequality in China was in the late 1950s and early 1960s, the Great Famine. 2. Food. In rural areas, the goal is to achieve basic self-sufficiency. However, food production is constrained by both natural conditions and state procurement policies. The issue of food and clothing often faces challenges, especially after the disaster caused by the Great Leap Forward. The risk of malnutrition and even famine is very real. In urban areas, a strict rationing system was implemented. Urban residents receive food stamps with their household registration and unit certificates, cloth tickets, oil tickets, meat tickets, and other tickets, to buy a certain amount of basic necessities. Although this system provided a certain degree of basic protection in an era of extreme material scarcity, but it also means that the variety of food is extremely monotonous and the quantity is strictly limited. Ticketing systems are not just a means of managing scarce resources. It is an effective tool of social control. It ties city dwellers to where they live and where they work, further strengthening the urban-rural division and population mobility restrictions. 3. Clothing. Clothing is dominated by practicality and politics. The colors are monotonous, and blue, gray, and black are the absolute mainstream colors. The style is simple and uniform, with mouse suits and tooling jackets being the most common styles. Cotton, as the main fabric, also needs to be purchased with cloth tickets. People have almost no personal choice in what to wear. Durable wear and dirt resistance are the top priorities, and fashion concepts are almost non-existent. 4. Housing. In rural areas, housing conditions are generally poor. Farmers usually build their own houses. The material is mostly adobe mud brick or thatch. Lack of modern sanitation and living facilities. Land is collectively owned, and housing construction is subject to certain restrictions. In urban areas, housing is mainly allocated by the workplace. Small areas and poor facilities are common phenomena. Many residents live in old houses or newly built tube buildings left over from before liberation. The latter usually means that several or even a dozen families share kitchens and bathrooms. Urban infrastructure buildings lag behind, and the living environment needs to be improved urgently. Under the unit system, many large units form relatively closed compounds. The interior includes staff dormitories, canteens, schools, clinics, etc. It constitutes the basic spatial unit of the life of city dwellers. It mainly relies on walking and bicycles. Bicycles are the main form of personal transportation in cities. But it is not owned by the family either. Buses are the main form of public transportation in cities. But the lines are limited and often overcrowded. Private car ownership is out of reach for the general public. Long-distance travel is very difficult and uncommon. 6. Communication and entertainment. Communication is extremely limited. Private installation phones are rare. People mainly rely on the postal system for letter exchange and sparsely distributed public phones. These phones are usually located in the unit or neighborhood committee. The limitations of this communication condition. It makes the dissemination of information slow and mainly under official control, strengthening the collective lifestyle and the state's management of information. Radio is a major source of family information and entertainment. Film screenings are important collective entertainment. But the film's sources are limited and many are political propaganda.